This video is presented by MyBookie.ag. What's up, everybody? Here are my predictions for the two cards happening this weekend, the Bellator and the UFC card. What I will say is, the fights aren't the most technical. They're technical enough, but just generally looking at the fights on paper, most of them are just explosive. Most of them are just fun fights without too much technique involved, like Paulo Costa versus Marvin Vettori, Fedor versus Timothy Johnson, Trinaldo versus Grant. Just a bunch of fun, explosive fights that we are really going to enjoy. And I would pick the fighter of the night. I'll probably give it to Marvin Vettori for the fact that he was the professional one going into that main event. He's a guy that a lot of people are going to be looking at, and he has a lot to gain beating Paulo Costa. The prospect of the night, I will have to say, is Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson has an excellent record. He's doing very well in the UFC right now. I mean, knocking out Leonardo Santos the way he did was insane. I have to say that the fight of the night is probably going to go to that main event. Again, there's not too many technical fights going on Saturday, but the most technical or the highest skilled fight is probably going to be Costa versus Vettori. The banger of the night is definitely Francisco Trinaldo versus Dwight Grant. That fight's going to be insane. And the steak of the night, the fighter in hot waters, is Paulo Costa. He has only lost one fight, but the guy's been playing around a bit too much. I mean, he walked into fight week 2 days before weigh-ins at 211 pounds. It's obvious he's not taking something seriously, or he has one heck of an excuse. We know the organization is not happy with Costa, and imagine he loses to Vettori after all this. Imagine he gets finished in the fight. But with all that, we're gonna go right into Alex Caceres versus Seungwoo Choi. Two guys that are completely different in their styles, and they're so different in size. Alex Caceres is so much smaller. The guy was a 135-pound fighter, where he did get some of his most notable wins, and he said for many years that he never really had to cut much weight to 145. Seungwoo Choi, on the other hand, looks like he's a 155er. I don't even know how he makes that weight. The guy's 6 feet tall. He looks like he walks around at 180. The guy is absolutely massive. He would look like he would be even big for the 155-pound weight class too. And with that comes tremendous power. Seungwoo Choi hits hard, and he really commits into his power shots. He has that concussive Korean style. A lot of emphasis on the right hand, but he does mix up a lot of left hook follow-ups. Those are the main weapons that he goes to in every single fight. Right straights and left hook follow-ups. Those are his main techniques. Sometimes he'll throw in some tricky question mark kicks, and his light kicks are very fast. That's going to be a big weapon for him to attack Alex Caceres for the entire fight, and other way around as well. Alex Caceres needs to throw a lot of kicks in this fight and keep the fight at a range, even though he has the reach disadvantage by 1 or 2 inches when you throw in the height difference as well. Caceres does fight much better than Seungwoo Choi from a distance. He's much better with his jab. He's much better with his timing from a distance. He's better with his kicks. He's very unorthodox. He's a very loose fighter. That's the contrast of styles here. Alex Caceres fights very loose and fluid, whereas Seungwoo Choi is very compact and tight. That makes Seungwoo Choi a menace in mid to close range, but not so dangerous from far range. He rushes his openings with power shots instead of intelligently creating them through his long reach. He can have an excellent jab, he just doesn't really use it. He likes to start his aggression with powerful right straights and then left hook follow-ups. You saw this in the Zalal fight and the Julian Erosa fight. Everything he throws with his hands is meant to knock you out. Now, if Alex Caceres takes that big right hand or left hook to the chin, he might get dropped by the very first shot. But because Caceres is so tricky and flowy in the cage, he's always moving around in a very awkward manner, it might be pretty difficult for Seungwoo Choi to catch him clean. If you look at the fights that Seungwoo Choi did catch opponents, it was like the Julian Erosa fight. Julian Erosa is one of the most defenseless fighters in the UFC, just objectively speaking. He's much better with his offense than he is with his defense. He leaves his chin open, doesn't block, he moves forward, doesn't really move back. He made himself an easy target for Choi. Caceres is not an easy target, and he's been fighting the best of the best for so many years. He has so much experience. He's generally a very slippery fighter on the feet. And look at Choi versus Zalal. Choi did not deal well with the jabs. He was eating jabs from a distance all day. Was not able to see them coming. It's because he's so focused on the power shots. He's not really minding any of the smaller attacks that set up the power shots. So it's absolutely possible we could see Alex Caceres work the jab, work the leg kicks, work the side kicks, and try to drag this fight out into a decision where he's a lot more comfortable, right? He's gone to a decision many times in his career. He has very good cardio. But man, the size and the power just may be too much. And if Alex Caceres makes one bad move, this fight could be over in a flash. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Seungwoo Choi, and I'm going to go by a second round TKO. Caceres is a hard guy to knock out, but this is the biggest guy he's ever fought in his entire career, and the most powerful. And the big thing going against Alex Caceres in this one is the fact that he is slower than Seungwoo Choi. That is going to be one of the biggest discrepancies that's going to possibly make the fight for Choi. I definitely do not agree with the betting odds here. I do not think Seungwoo Choi should be a 3-1 favorite over Alex Caceres. I think the odds are riding a lot on how big and powerful he is and how young he is. that at the same time they are underestimating Alex Caceres' skills. That's not to say that Caceres is going to win, but the gap should be a lot closer than that. There are definitely technical deficiencies in Seungwoo Choi's game. And then we go to the main event, Paulo Costa versus Marvin Vettori. Two of the most hated fighters in the middleweight division for many reasons, and two guys that have just lost to Israel Adesanya. It looks like mentally though, Marvin Vettori came off of that Adesanya fight a lot better than Paulo Costa. Israel has completely destroyed Costa's mind. Costa is just not thinking the same way. He's creating a bunch of weird excuses. He's coming into a fight not even wanting to make weight. He's like calling the shots and painting the narrative on Marvin Vettori, saying that he's scared of him if he's not going to fight him. He was like withdrawing from fights and stuff. I mean, Costa is not the same guy after the Adesanya fight that he was before. And we know that mental side, but we don't know how he's going to perform after that because we never seen him fight ever since his first loss. And the fact that he came into fight week so heavy means that his cardio is probably not where it's supposed to be. This fight is a 5-rounder. There's videos of Marvin Vettori going crazy in the gym. Vettori is definitely going to be 5-round ready. I mean, he came into fight week lighter than Costa, so making 195, which is the catch weight that they're fighting at, that was actually announced a couple hours ago, he's gonna make that weight perfectly fine. Costa still might have a bit of issue with 195. I know he was the one that threw that catch weight out there, but cutting 16 pounds in a day and a half is still a bit of a cut. I think he will make it, but it's not gonna be smooth sailing like it will be for Marvin Vettori. Vettori's gonna be smaller in the cage, but he's gonna have the cardio advantage, he might have the speed advantage, he's gonna have the mental advantage, and honestly, the stylistic advantage. He is well-rounded, whereas Paulo Costa hasn't really shown too much of his wrestling and grappling. He's known to be a somewhat technical brawler. He smothers you with pressure, wings haymakers to the body and to the head, good body kicks as well. He's deceptively fast with his punches, and he has deceptive cardio. And it makes sense when you see that he doesn't generally have that same kind of power that some of the other guys in this division have. His appearance, the way he looks, makes it seem like he has crazy knockout power, but when you watch him perform and you watch him hit guys, they don't go out with one shot like that. He generally TKOs opponents with a barrage of punches to the body and to the head. Now, what I will say is he probably has more power than Marvin Vettori. Vettori's not much of a striker. That's where he actually lacks the most. Vettori's more of a wrestler and a grappler, but he can strike and make things awkward. He puts on tremendous pressure as well, and that's what tells me that the longer the fight goes, Vettori is going to take it over. Costa is probably not going to be ready to fight in the 4th and 5th rounds for sure. I can see him getting tired in the 3rd round, and that's when Vettori starts to pick it up on him. 4th and 5th come around, Vettori's going to pressure him, throw left hands into double leg takedowns, take him to the ground, grind it out, a lot of ground and pound. Vettori actually has some threatening ground and pound shots where I could potentially see him finishing the fight late. But here's the thing, even early, Vettori still has that double leg counter or single leg counter in his toolbox. If he's starting to get pressured by Costa and Costa's trying to rip punches to the body and to the head and just swing big, there's still going to be many opportunities for Vettori to counter with the takedowns and get the fight to the ground in his world. Whereas the other way around, Paulo Costa's not great punching backwards. He doesn't have the takedown either. He's most likely not going to take down Marvin Vettori. So what does Costa do when he starts to get pressured and he starts to get tired? Wing haymakers, hope it lands, but even still, man, Marvin Vettori has a block of a head. The guy has an insane chin where fighters like Israel Adesanya have to hit him multiple times with big power shots in order to hurt him. So you don't have to look at the fight too in depth to understand on paper, like generally speaking, because of everything coming into the fight, Costa being overweight, the preparation from Marvin Vettori, the stylistic collision, Vettori's chin versus the power that Costa possesses, the fact that Costa is probably going to start gassing out in the fight and Vettori is a cardio machine, and also he has the wrestling where Costa doesn't really get threatened in that area too many times. My prediction for this fight, I'm going to have to go with Marvin Vettori, and I'm going to go by a 4th round submission. And I also do agree with the betting guys. Marvin Vettori is almost a 2-1 favorite over Costa, and the odds have shifted a bit ever since Costa's announcement that he's 211 pounds. I can only see the gap getting wider and wider between the two. And with that, we go into the Bellator main event, Fedor Emelianenko versus Timothy Johnson. This fight is not lasting. Fedor fights very similar to the way he's always fought. He's aged awkwardly. He's 46 years old, but he's extremely fast with his hands, and they usually say speed is the first thing to go. He has crazy good power, still has his judo and grappling, boxes almost the same way he's always boxed. The thing that he just does not possess at all is a chin. If a plane flies over his house, he's gonna be rattled. Like that level of no chin. He literally gets touched by anybody and he gets hurt. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that right now Fedor probably has the worst chin in MMA. And it's not to be surprised about. I mean, the guy's 46 years old. He's taken horrendous damage his entire career. Has been doing it for such a long time. And he's an old school fighter. Imagine how he used to spar. So it's not surprising. And that tells me, man, he could be winning this fight. He's just generally better than Timothy Johnson. Technically, he's better, especially on the ground. But Timothy is way bigger than him. He's almost 50 50 pounds heavier, Johnson has a better chin, and he has enough power to knock out Fedor with one given shot. So because of that, man, as much as it hurts for me to say it, I have to go with Timothy Johnson this one. And I'm going to go by a first round knockout. I can see Fedor winning the fight up until he gets clipped and it's over. These heavyweight fights are pretty hard to predict sometimes. I mean, you never really know exactly what's going to happen. So for that fight specifically, it's a great one to go and bet on it on mybookie.ag, where they have absolutely the best lines and a lot of MMA cards going on that you can bet on MyBookie with. You got the LFA, you got Bellator, you got the UFC, and many great, interesting odds. I mean, get this. Usman Nurmagomedov on Bellator is a minus 2,300. Minus 2,300. Could you imagine if he loses that fight? That would be a wild upset. And just generally, there's a lot of big favorites all over the Bellator card. Whereas on the UFC card, there's a lot of very close odds. And like I said before about the Costa and Vettori fight, the odds have been changing drastically. So man, if you're riding on Marvin Vettori, now is probably the best time to put something on him before the lines change even more. But honestly, one of the best things to do is just to bet with a parlay. With multiple fighters that you're confident in winning, you can maximize your earnings. It could be 2 fighters, it could be 3, you could have a whole lineup of the entire card. Many ways you could go about it. And MyBookie, of course, is having the first deposit bonus where they will double your first deposit all the way up to $1,000. That means if you deposit $100, you get another $100 of free money to play with. Just use the promo code WEASEL to activate this offer. Remember, it's WEASLE, not EL. And visit mybookie.ag today, where you bet, you win, and when you win, you get paid. And frankly, the only 2 fights I do disagree with are the Kama Worthy and Jai Herbert fight, where I do think Worthy has a good shot at winning there, and he is a moderate underdog. And I do believe there's too big of a gap between Alex Caceres and Seungwoo Choi. Other than that, man, Bellator has some crazy odds, and the UFC has some very close odds, making the Bellator card more risky, yet also more rewarding when it comes to betting on those fights. And that's the end of the predictions, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed my content. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.